In many ways, it was the ones that I had to concentrate the most on were some of the really larger characters, and I didn't have that many huge characters. But we did this thing called the Animal Show. I don't know whether anybody ever saw this thing, because it was on for a short time. We did it for Fox Children's Network called the Animal Show, and the two characters were Stinky and Jake. Stinky was a skunk, and Jake was this massive polar bear puppet that I did. And because he was so huge, and he towered above Dave Gold's little lightweight puppet, the skunk, and they were alongside each other, he was like, 2 feet taller than the skunk. So the way we're very much sticklers about where the characters are looking, their eye focus. So in order for Jake to look down at every other character on the set, I was working like that the whole time, which hurts when you just do that. And then you're holding this enormous weight. And the other part is that puts all the weight right on top of you, so it's pushing even more, right? And he was massive and heavy. And I wanted him to have trouble moving because he's so big he can hardly move. So I was playing him as though he had a lot of extra bulk. And so just remembering to do that and thinking about this big guy who had to turn like this, he's very stiff-necked and he would, when he moved, And it was a challenge to do that, just as a character. To remember to do that with his manager, it was much easier just to turn him, Yeah, sure.
One character we hadn't brought up yet that you inherited was Statler.
Yeah.
I guess Muppets Tonight probably is where you got to be him the most, right?
I think so. And Statler bounced back and forth between a few puppeteers for a while, until I kind of was the guy for a while. Statler was also a character that was done by Richard Hunt, who did Meeker. On the Muppet Show, prior to that, it was Jerry Nelson, one of our other performers, originally did Statler, and for whatever reason, Richard did him throughout the Muppet Show. So my memory of Statler was Richard's Statler. It was a little bit different. So I was always trying to base what I did on what Richard had done, because I thought that more established Statler through the Muppet Show. And he was great. Playing with those two guys got really raunchy off set. Because they're these two dirty old men, So Dave and I would crack each other up, the things that none of you will ever see. They were fun.
Can you tell us your thoughts on the controversy of the Kermit-Piggy breakup and Kermit's love life during that time?
Yeah, poor Kermit. What's worse, being with Miss Piggy or not being with her? Okay, so in all fairness, that's nothing misogynistic about that, ladies. Frank always said that Miss Piggy was a truck driver in a dress. She was never meant to be a female role model. So, and once in a while I have people come in and say, as a little girl, Miss Piggy was a role model, and I'm thinking, that's terrible. Oh my God. But, that was a funny thing. Jim and Frank, I think, had talked about doing that before Jim passed away, having a time frame where they, just as a publicity thing, a marketing thing, to have Kermit and Piggy split up for a moment. I don't think it was a great idea for it to span an entire series myself. I think it was a good thing. It was such a good deal when we did it with the press. It did exactly what Jim had talked about. It was a great thing, fun thing. But I think in a way to base the whole series around it was the wrong way to go. They needed to kiss and make up or something. I understand why it was tried, because it gave tension between the characters throughout the whole series. But I think they needed to be together. There was some thoughts that, but they've been together for 40 years. We need to change it up. I don't really think so. I think they needed to stay consistent. In that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Hello there.
Hi.
I'm a longtime Fraggle Rock fan.
Oh, good.
And I always noticed how Wembley was the only one who had eyes that moved.
Yeah.
My question is, what was the mechanism that controlled that?
Yeah.
Was that you?
It was built by, I don't know exactly who built it. There was a person who built many Muppet mechanisms, all the Doozers, a guy named Foz Fazakas. Foz was this, he passed away some years ago, who built all the Doozer vehicles and the little mechanical Doozers. He's a genius. And he had a whole team of people. A guy named, I'm sorry. It all went out of my head because I'm thinking about the rest of the story. But he had a terrific team of people. Tom Newby was one of the guys, all these mechanical guys who built these little guys. And the Wembley mechanism was mechanical. It ran on a battery. It was two little motors that were on his eyes so that his eyes twirled. And I tried not to use it very much because I wanted it to really be a big deal when it happened. And it was a separate Wembley head. Because of the mechanism on the inside, it wasn't as comfortable to manipulate. He was a little bit stiffer. So I would save that eye mechanism until we really had a reason for his eyes to spin. He was going to pass out or he was going to look around a corner. And so that's, I think if it had happened in every episode, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal, you know. Once in a while, Wembley's eyes would rotate. And the funny part of them was that they were set so that they would do a full turn, and I guess they would keep going, but as soon as you took your finger off the button, which was down here on the arm rod, they would retract back. It would always go back the other way. So whatever you were doing, you knew that was going to happen. So you had to plan whatever actions you were doing to, you know, include the eyes going back the other way too. You know? So yeah, it was a great little gimmick and look, you know.
Thank you for solving the biggest mystery of my childhood.
You got it. Wembley was probably, I said Rizzo was my favorite character, but Fraggle was probably my favorite show that I ever was a part of. It was so much fun, and it was such a great group of people working on that show, you know.
Hi, if this has been asked already, I apologize. Took me a minute to find here. What's your favorite Wilkins coffee commercial that Jim did?
It hasn't been asked, and well, there's a story that's my favorite story about it, but probably my favorite one is just the basic one where the guy gets shot with a cannon. Those were such great, effective commercials, you know. And those two characters are, you know, you can see in those two puppets where Jim was headed with everything he did. There was just these shapes with eyes, you know, and that's what the original Muppets largely were. You know, a lot of them were just that simple thing. But the story as I heard it, so if this is wrong, somebody who knows more than me can correct it, is that they had done one commercial where it was the basic thing, you know, one character would say, "Do you drink Wilkins coffee?" The other would say, "No, never heard of it." And then something would happen to the guy who said no. And the other one would turn and say, "Do you drink Wilkins coffee?" Like he's gonna do it to you. Great ad campaign. So they did one where the guy had like a pistol, you know, a toy, it just probably shot powder out of it. And the guy said, "Do you drink Wilkins coffee?" "No." Bang, so he shoots the guy. And he says, "Do you drink Wilkins coffee?" So cute, you know, cartoony violence. However, my understanding is that was set to air on the night that John Kennedy was assassinated. So, and I don't think it ran. I think they maybe pulled it, but what unfortunate timing, right? So, and it's interesting at that point in the American culture, I think is when that type of violence started to maybe take on a little bit of a different meaning to people, you know? I mean, when I was watching Bugs Bunny cartoons, it was a whole different story, you know, and things have gotten much more tame in a way these days. I miss the other, but I also understand, you know. But yeah, that's the Wilkins stuff, you know.
Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Actually, we have time for one more, so that's perfect.
Now we have one more. Hey!
I'm